Hello, I'm Toby Hulse from Roustabout Theatre, and welcome to the third in our series of Lights Up On. Today we're going to be talking to Gemma Brooks, who's a production manager. Hello, Gemma.
Hi.
Hello. So just to give you a little insight into what we're going to try and achieve this morning, this is a series of webinars aimed at people who are currently studying theatre or drama, either at school or at university, people who are interested in working in the industry, aspiring theatre makers, and just very, very curious audience members. It was pointed out last week on Twitter that people join the industry at all sorts of ages. In fact, I didn't actually start working professionally in theatre till I was 30. So this is definitely not pitched just at those currently studying. It's for anyone who's interested in the profession. So I will be asking a few questions to Gemma about her job and where she ended up where she is today. And if you have any questions, attendees, if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll find a little button that says Q&A. And if you type your question at any point into that box, then we will try and answer as many as we can in the time we've got available. Also, I'd like to mention that we're hoping this is the start of some kind of online, possibly eventually in-person mentoring opportunities for people. So if you are an emerging theatre maker or are currently studying theatre or drama and we can help you in any way, then do please get in touch with Roustabout Theatre and we'll see what we can do. Our previous interviews were with Kate Cross of The Egg in Bath and Nikki Miles-Wildin from Grey Eye Theatre, and both of those are currently available online via our website, which is www.roustabouttheatre.co.uk. So, hello, Gemma. Let's get started. Hi. So, when I was at school, and certainly from my experience of working with young audiences, I thought that plays were, the actors made it up as they went along, that there was no kind of preparation or rehearsal involved. And I know that this is still current belief amongst many young audiences, as I was in a show with the wonderful Angela Athay Hunt, who's some years younger than me, but was playing my mother. And quite often I would get asked if I was actually her son, which was chronologically impossible. And as I got older, I realized that there were more and more people that worked in theatre, but I didn't really come across a production manager until much later in my career. And I'd be very interested to know, what does a production manager do? What is your job, Gemma Brooks?
Well, it's a lot of different things, really, using a lot of different skills. I mean, I guess it comes in stages and at different points of the job. There are different priorities, if you like. So I kind of begin with, it's like liaising with probably the producer, the writer, the designer, the director, and it's kind of just realizing their thoughts and aesthetic and the way that they want the production to go. So in the first instance, it would be very preliminary discussions about, oh, it's going to be modern dress, or it's going to be period dress, or it's going to be abstract, or that kind of thing. And then moving on, you'd go forward to actually realizing the design, when that is all kind of decided upon amongst the creatives. So that's really what it is from the outset. But then I guess it carries on through pricing it all, making sure that it's within what you can afford, then making suggestions of how to bring it back into a realistic budget, which never really goes down very well. And then facilitating the build and making sure that everything the designer wants to be happening at different points is happening. And then kind of going into the production side of it, so overseeing how all the other elements come together. So that would be discussions with the lighting department, sound, possibly choreography, costume, stage management, all those kind of things. So it kind of has got different stages as it goes along. And
you don't just work in theatre, do you?
No, but it's very different in different industries. So I do mainly theatre, but I also have quite a lot to do with like performance art in Bristol, and I oversee a big festival which oversees international work as well as local work. So, and that is more urging on the performance side of stuff, the art side. But I've also done quite a bit of dance and events. However, I do have to say I stage manage events. I don't production manage them. That is a completely different ballgame.
We'll be talking to a stage manager later on in this series, so that we'll hopefully get a sense of the difference between the various departments of production management and stage management. You're the first person that we've spoken to that's currently working freelance, but I'm aware that you've also worked PAYE, and there'll be people listening to this who haven't actually entered the profession yet. Could you just give us a sense of the difference between PAYE and freelance and what the benefits and challenges of each are?
Yeah, well, when I started out, I kind of went into contracts that were PAYE because that's just the way it was, really. And because I was quite green, you know, I didn't really know what the options were, and the drama school that I went to didn't really do an awful lot on that side. I don't think any of them did then, actually. I think they're much better now at advising students about tax status and all those kind of financing. So I kind of started off that, and then I tell you what happened. I got a job on a tour, and without beating about the bush, I realised I could make more money by being freelance. So they were happy for me to be PAYE. But first of all, I was asked to make my own provision for national insurance. So that is kind of, it goes out at source rather than your employer contributing. So it helps the employer as well, basically. And then I just, the more experience I got, I realised that by being freelance, tax status was just more helpful in the times that you didn't have work, so you can offset things against your income. I mean, obviously, I have an accountant. You don't have to have an accountant, but I have an accountant, and they tell me what you can put in and what you can't. So it's not like you're just whacking in loads of receipts for nonsense, you know. But if it's about, and especially in times like this, when you're working at home a lot and using your house as office space, if you haven't got an office, you know, all those kind of things you can offset, which was kind of a whole new thing to me. So I got some advice about it, and I've got an accountant who specialises only in actors, stage management, dancers, all performers. So he kind of is really helpful in that. So that so financially, it's kind of better for me. But also it means that you can pick and choose, I think. So when I was doing contracts in buildings, in venues, obviously you're party to the rules of being an employee in that building, and whether that's holiday or holiday pay or whatever. But now I can pick and choose what jobs I take. I mean, sometimes it does mean I've got 4 jobs on the go. You know, that's the way it is. But because, and that is a down, I suppose, you don't know when you're not going to get a job, so you have to just keep going. So I kind of try, I never overload myself so much that I can't do a good job. I would always turn something down rather than think I was spread too thin. But it does mean that, you know, I've got children, they're a bit older now, but it meant that as a freelancer, I could say I'm not going to take any work in August. And although you don't get any money because you're not doing any work, that is really helpful, I think, especially with young children. So, and now I just find being able to work remotely has been really helpful about what's happening now. I'm used to it, where a lot of my friends are not used to working at home. And that is being a freelancer, I think. Does that answer the question?
It absolutely answers the question, and it's for those of you thinking of working in the theatre industry, there's always this balance between the security of a job in a building where you turn up for certain hours and you have the holiday pay and the sick pay and all those entitlements and benefits, versus the flexibility that freelance work gives you. But with freelance work comes a lot of fear. There's always the worry that you'll never get a job ever again. And
which never goes away, ever.
And it takes a lot of confidence to say, I'm not going to take this job because I want to spend some time with my children. But it does give you the flexibility to do that. And it's something worth considering if, as you work more and more in the theatre industry, which route you want to kind of work. And most people will dip backwards and forwards between the two.
It does also allow you to do different jobs. Like I said, you know, I could be working on a theatre show and then go and do a conference or go and do a charity event, or, you know, and that mix up of stuff. You don't get that when you're in one building. Having that said, you know, there's a lot of security to being in one building. And I think you just have to weigh up whether you're that person or not. And for the last few years, I haven't been that person, I guess.
And there is the downside, of course, there's no Christmas party if you're a freelancer.
You only have
to fancy sitting on your own. You have to borrow your own photocopier to photocopy your bum. Sorry. How did you end up? I mean, you mentioned that you went to drama school. How did you first get interested in theatre, and what was your path to becoming a production manager?
Well, I think I'm a bit like you, Toby. Started off, well, you started off doing something else, but I did not know what I wanted to do. I mean, a lot of the students I deal with now have come up through National Youth Theatre or stuff like that, or they've been to their local youth theatres and drama groups. I did none of that whatsoever. And I did English degree, followed by some other courses. And then I ended up going to drama school because I was studying in Stratford-upon-Avon, and there's not much else to do there except go to the theatre, to be perfectly honest. And I ended up chatting to one of the stage managers there, and I just said, look, I really would quite like to, but I'd literally only ever watched theatre. I'd never worked backstage. I didn't know anything about it. And he really helped me. He got me some work experience, showed me how to apply to drama school, and luckily I got in. I mean, but I think at the time it was a bit different, you know, it's over 20 years ago. And at the time it was very hard to get into the industry without going to drama school. And I don't think that's the case now. So I felt that I had to go to drama school. So I went in and did a post-grad quick entry stage management and technical theatre course. So that's how I did. But then, sorry, the question was how to get to production management, wasn't it? I was a stage manager. I wanted to be a stage manager. Started off at the probably most junior level, assistant stage manager, did all the roles. And then kind of, well, I guess it was after I had my daughter that I realised I couldn't go back to stage management full time. I did a little bit, but there was just something that I couldn't quite give the amount of hours that it takes. And I got offered a small job doing production management, and I'd never thought about it because I didn't think I was technical enough. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I'll just give it a go and see how I get on. And it was fine. And actually, it was the remote working that worked well for me. And I was able to do that around other things, you know. And so through that, I just got a bit more experience and a bit more confidence, and had a couple of mentors. And, you know, and since then, it's just, I haven't really done any stage management except in corporate events. That's all. So I do purely production management now.
It's interesting. This isn't a question I warned you about, but just something you've mentioned a couple of times now. We both have children, and the traditional theatre industry takes place in the evening, and will often be working over weekends, and the hours are not particularly compatible with children. Do you think, I should have warned you about this question, do you think there's a way that could be improved? Or there's something that the industry could, I know I've ended up working in theatre for young audiences and in schools theatre because it not only suits me and is what was interesting to me, but it actually fits with the other things that are going on in my life. But I mean,
Do you know what the weird thing is? That's what I normally don't mention that I've got kids. Isn't that weird? And the fact that I've said it twice, it's probably because I think I'm just talking to you. I normally don't say that. It's not that I deny it, but do you know what I mean? Because it is really tricky, but it is not impossible. I am proof of that. It just means that I think you have to have a very supportive home environment to begin with, but also I think there are things that can be done. I mean, there are some big theatres that have creches and nursery kind of facilities. They do at the RSC, you know, and that allows people with families to work there. Obviously, on the kind of work that we do, those kind of things aren't available to us, really. So I think that's a benefit of freelancing as well, that you can choose when to work. So I would, when Pearl was very little, I would work till 3 o'clock, then do stuff with her till 6, and then carry on 6 till 10. But some people wouldn't dream of doing that. It's like, it is a bit of a commitment, I guess. And I think if employers were more, I mean, if there were job shares for women, that would be the best thing. But no one is going to entertain that, I don't think, in our industry.
It's interesting how many things are changing across the world because of the current pandemic, the ways that people are working. And it'd be very interesting to see if anything of that transfers into the theatre industry in the future. Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, the one thing about theatre is mainly people are quite nice, aren't they? They're generally nice and understanding. And I think, you know, if you explain your situation, whatever it is, oh, I need to be away by now, or most directors might work around that, or, you know, if I've got a big meeting in London, everyone is kind of amenable to making it work for everyone. And that's what and that is not like being in an office saying, this is when this will happen. It is, except of course when you get to production week, and that's when it's really, really tight. But you know, that's one of the good things about this industry. Everyone's so nice, I think, generally. I've got one more question to ask you before I ask you some of the questions that are coming in from our attendees. What skills or I mean, you've touched on this partly already. What skills or training or experiences do you think people who are interested in production management should start looking to acquire or get? Well, as you know, I'm not particularly technical, and I never have been, but I've come up through stage management, and the essence of stage management, I think, is common sense. So I think that is the big thing that, you know, if you want to be a production manager, just to have really good common sense. It sounds ridiculous, but it is the main thing. I mean, as I said, I don't feel like people need to have gone to drama school so much anymore. It's really useful, but there's lots of degree courses and that kind of thing. And I guess they're all as good as each other now, I imagine. But there are things that I personally think for a production manager really important that they can do. And one is drive. That I would say lots of people forget about that, because I guess now, you know, young people don't. When I was 17, I learned to drive straight away, but I don't think that happens much anymore. But it's really important in our industry. I'm always hiring vans, and lots of the first jobs you'll do will be driving a van around the country, that kind of thing. So then I thought about the other things that you, first aid would be really helpful. You don't have to have it, but if I do a job, if I'm out, if my certificates run out or whatever, I'd kind of double check that there's someone else on the team with it, because that's part of the job anyway. Kind of general good technical skills, know your way around a theatre or an event or the equipment. You don't need to know all about it,
but just know the terms. It's in a lot of people now have an iPath, which means you can work at height. I haven't got one, and it's on my list to do this year, basically. But the main thing I would say is to have a really good address book. So whatever job I'm on and I get stuck on something, I always think, oh God, who do I know who can help me on this? And then I might just give them a ring, run through some stuff, or they might help me, or I might send them a picture. And then it's like, oh yes, I'm on the right lines, brilliant. And so, you know, because we're not robots, no one's infallible. And so I think a really good address book is one of the main things.
Fantastic. So this is I've got some questions here, and these first two are kind of linked. Sophie asks, what's the proudest moment of your career so far?
Oh God. Do you know what? There's been a few. The first time I took a show into the West End, I was really proud.
Which show was that?
So I took The Mentor in from Theatrical Bath, and also Bad Jews, which was from Theatrical Bath. I do a lot of freelance work for them, obviously because they're kind of commercial touring outfit in a lot of ways, and they if their shows do well, they try and get them a spot in the West End, which I really like. And so I've done that a few times, and that made me really proud. But one of the proudest things is when I've done some work for Pimlico Opera, which takes shows into prisons, and that, oh my God, it was overwhelming. It, like, emotionally, kind of just blew my mind, the whole thing. So we took, I'll really quickly tell you, like, took 10 pros from Grange Park Opera, so 10 opera singers, full orchestra, full technical team into, I've done 3 in different prisons, and you go in and ask specific inmates, they have to fulfill a criteria, whether they would like to be in the ensemble, and then they get the chance to learn how to read music, how to sing, and that, oh, amazing. I was really fantastic. I was proud of all of those. They were really good.
And that, I think that's an indication of why people continue to work in an industry that quite often overworked and poorly paid. Is that the passion that you've just heard there from Gemma, and the enthusiasm, and the just how much you get back from working in the industry is extraordinary. And any of you who've done any work in theatre will know not only that how awful it can be, but how brilliant it can be too. James asks, so it's kind of the flip side of that question, what's the biggest challenge you faced to make a production work, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, I don't want to go into specifics.
Don't have to mention names.
No. Right, there's a few times where there's been show stops. So basically, I would, if I'm doing a show that's in a venue, I would probably do up to the press night. So from first preview to press night, it was maybe 6 to 8 shows. I would be there every night and do work after the show to make sure it's right for the next day. Or if it's touring, I would go in, fit the show up, and then leave it for the stage manager. And there's been a few occasions where I've had phone calls after I've left, and I'm literally either on the motorway or on a train, and there's been a show stop, and I've had to turn around and go back. Not things like that, but like when it's technical stuff, it's really tricky, because a lot of the times you just have to say, we can't do anything. Very sorry. It's going to have to stop tonight. We're going to have to get engineers in tomorrow or something like that. But then other times it's really simple things that can just be remedied. I'll tell you one time that I did a show, I was a stage manager actually. I sent on this actor after a quick change who'd done a quick change, I think it was Hello Dolly or something like that. in a big hat, and I was watching her from the wings, and I could see her touching her face. I was thinking, what is that? And the dresser had put the hat pin through her scalp.
Ooh.
Put the hat in, put it through the scalp, and there was this blood just dripping down. And I thought, oh my God, what do I do? You know, do I stop it and go and get her? But luckily she didn't really realise. So just carried on, came off.
Fantastic. Kim has asked, what's your first theatrical memory?
Oh, I don't know. When I was at university, I was in London, so we used to go and see shows a lot. I saw Hamlet a week before Daniel Day-Lewis kind of had kind of mental breakdown on stage, and I saw him do that, and that show was amazing. That I do remember, but that wasn't very. I was probably 18, but I remember thinking, "Oh my God, that!" I mean, it was just such a good show. And a week later, he was off.
And do you have a very early theatrical? Like, can you remember the first time you went? No.
I don't think so. I didn't go to pantos and all that kind of stuff. It might have been something at school. Not that I was in it, because I've never wanted to do that, but I might have seen something at school. But really, my theatre memories are from when I lived in London, from when I was 18, I think, and seeing really good theatre. Yeah.
Ben asks, is there someone who has been a big or the biggest inspiration in your career?
Well, not really, but I do have about 3 or 4 people that, you know, I wouldn't like to name, but have been in the industry for a long time, and they've helped me, and particularly some of the older members of staff at the Bristol Old Vic, who we know, who I've always felt, you know, I could ask them anything, and they really helped me. And they've basically known me since I was an ASM.
Yeah.
And, you know, and now some of them have retired now and still going, you know. So, yeah, a few, but they're mainly industry people that I've worked with, I guess. Yeah.
It's interesting you should say that. The one of the conversations that came up last week was about leaving the ladder down to help emerging theatre makers up, and I think we've both been the beneficiary of people who've been working in the industry a long time, who just leave the ladder down and help us up and support us, and continue to offer that support well after they've retired. And they're no longer being paid for anything like that.
Exactly.
And it's a wonderful industry to work in for those very reasons. This is a question that's coming from, I believe, from Shay, who's our Roustabout Theatre's producer. It's very specific. How can people who work in other roles in the theatre, such as producers, make your job easier? I'm asking as a producer who learned very quickly how important production managers are on a project that was cursed.
Okay. Sorry. So the question is, how can producers?
How can we make production managers' job easier?
I think it's kind of understanding and ability to compromise, because, you know, I hate being a no person. I feel like I don't say no, we're not doing that. I like to think that I say, right, okay, well, we'll have a look into that, see the options of how we're doing it, and then you know, see what the money situation is, see how much space we've got, who's available, and then we'll come back and talk about it. And I have worked with creatives that just say, yeah, but it is going to happen, isn't it? And I say, well, you know, we'll do our best to make sure that we can do it, but I can't guarantee it at this point, but we are going to have it, aren't we? And so I think it's just having that understanding, because it gets a bit wearing, that. And especially when I'm in costing meetings and I've costed everything and I've said, well, we could lose this, 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 and this, but we could have this lovely thing. And the director or the designer has said, that's brilliant, but can we also have this, this, and this? And I said, well, no, I've just said we can either have one or the other. Oh, and I feel like, you know, that some people are really good at it. One director had this one effect. She asked for one effect, but we just couldn't afford it. We could do it in a way that she didn't want it. She wanted it to be marvelous and massive, and we could do it about this big, you know. And with the best we could do it. And she just said, you know what? It's fine. I'm going to do something else. Let's do that. Let's put the money towards making this bit good. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's always, I like working with people like that. But saying that, it's good to have a challenge as well. And I always try and do everything that I'm asked of, you know.
Brilliant. Hannah's asked, whose work do you think is really exciting at the moment?
Well, the people that I've worked with who are kind of consistently good is Sally Cookson. Mm-hmm. And weirdly, I was hoping to watch A Monster Calls this week because it's online, isn't it? And I didn't see that one. And so I'm kind of really looking forward to that. And I'm sure it will be, you know, consistently as good as her other work, of which we've worked on stuff together. But I'm open to watching anything. I've been doing I was meant to be doing a Mayfest this year, and so I was looking into a lot of the work that has been done for that, and a lot of it is international, kind of filmic, quite a lot of stuff for the drag scene, all that kind of stuff I think is quite good at the moment. And sorry, it's not a very good answer, that, is it? The problem is you don't go to the theatre as much as anyone else.
Because you're always working when the plays are on. That's the problem.
Yeah, no. So I mean, I like anything, actually, anything. So, and I would never, you know, some people say, oh, I went in the interval, I couldn't bear it. Mm. I would never do that. I wouldn't dream of doing that. I would stay whatever I thought, you know, of the piece.
And you always learn something from watching live events, even if it's, I would never do it like that.
Yeah, and it's respectful. It's respectful of other people's work. I did take my daughter to see the Rhombeur piece just before the lockdown, which was young Rhombeur students. And I thought that was excellent. I thought it was really good. And I'm kind of getting more into that kind of side of things since doing the Mark Bruce tour quite recently. Because I don't do a lot of dance, but I do like to try and catch up on it. And so, yeah, that's not a very good answer, sorry.
What's the gender balance in production management, and has this changed over the period you've been working?
No, it's male dominated, I think. The thing is, with production managers, they don't work with any other production managers, really, unless you're in a massive, like, event team, like an opening ceremony or something like that. So you never get to work with other ones. I mean, I do know them, but we never work together. There are female production managers. I never meet them. The ones that in the areas and the buildings I work in, there's a lot of men. And similarly, the crew are generally all men. That sounds awful, doesn't it? I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. It's just been the way it is for a while. And I think women tend to go into stage management, maybe. Do you think that's right? Maybe I'm talking out of turn. most of the women I work with are stage management or wardrobe.
No, it's interesting, particularly since your career path has come from stage management into production management. There's, I teach at Bristol Theatrical, and it's noticeable of a group of students joining the production arts course. The ones that tend to go towards the stage management areas are the female ones, and the ones that tend to go towards the sound, lighting, those areas tend to be male. I mean, not universally, but
no, it's not universal at all. No, I mean, I've worked with a couple of amazing sound designers who are women, and I've worked with them once and not worked with them again. And it's either because they're so busy that they get picked up by other people, or you know, they just don't get invited back. I don't think that's the case, because I thought they were amazing, and that's quite unusual. Female sound, I think.
Yeah.
But
we found one for Roustabout.
Have you?
Yeah.
Hold on to her.
I will. If you weren't a production manager, is there another career path you may have taken? Now,
I've spoken to my kids about this. So when I came out of university, there weren't any jobs, really. There weren't many jobs. I didn't want to be an English teacher or anything like that. I didn't want to teach. So I kind of went to the one thing I liked, the interest I had, which was at the time Shakespeare and theatre. And so that's how I found my way. But I did have a backup plan if I didn't get into drama school, which is I would have probably been a nurse. Which, well, if I could have got on the course, because I come from a family of nurses. So, but also I've never really done anything else. I've done all the jobs, you know, like bar work, shop work, all that kind of stuff. But career-wise, I've been really lucky, and I've never had to go and do another job for a bit. You know, like some actors have to go and do other bits. I've been really lucky, and I think that's the benefit of being freelance as well, that I don't really apply for jobs. It's, you know, word of mouth and reputation. And I mean, I guess that's the other thing. You rely on good work. You rely on people liking you. You rely on people respecting the way you work. So if you're not good, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but you know, if you're not good, I just don't think you would stay in the industry very long. And you know, I know my limitations. I know that I'm not going to be at the Royal Opera House, but that is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you know, I'm really lucky that I'm working in an industry that is interesting and that I love. It's really good, you know. So that's a benefit of being a freelancer as well.
Right. Ashley asks, what's the strangest or most ridiculous request you've had to say no to in a costing or production meeting?
It's not a costing, but I can tell you. So the show that I mentioned, The Mentor, which went into the West End, had F. Murray Abraham in it, who was in Amadeus, you know, and Homeland and all that. So it was a big deal. He was the money shot. He was it, you know. And like, so, and I was so excited about meeting him, and I just couldn't believe that he was in this show. Anyway, so he turns up on the first day and presents me with his Oscar for Amadeus, right? Which he never goes anywhere without. And he said, I have to ask all the production managers on all the shows that I do that I have Oscar put on the set somewhere every night. And I went, I don't think so. I'm sorry. And he said, no, literally, I just need it to be somewhere. I don't need to be able to see it. I am leaving it with you for the time I am in the UK. And I was like, oh my Lord, you know, this is worth more than my house probably. And And so I had to promise him that I would put it on the set somewhere. I didn't. I put it in the theatre safe under the stage, where all the takings went. But I promised him that I had done it, and that made him feel all right, I think.
And he didn't think to check whether it was there or not?
No, but I brought it home with me as well, right, from this meeting in London, turned up at my house with this Oscar, and I got my husband to fix it for him because it was all wonky like this, stood up like that. And when I presented it back to him, he went, "Oh, and you fixed it?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he was like, "Oh, fabulous."
That's a brilliant story. I've got one final question to ask you, which is a question we've been asking all our guests, which is, if you met the theatrical genie and you could have one wish granted, what would that wish be?
Yeah, well, I wish I could have my job back at the moment. That's what I'd wish. I'd wish that all the theatres that are being hit by redundancies, I saw today or last night that Bristol Hippodrome is starting to make people redundant. There's been the closures in Southampton and Leicester. I just wish that it could all go back to normal, because it has really affected our industry, this. Even though I'm doing bits and bobs, I'm doing this for you, and I'm still hoping that a show I'm booked for is happening in September, but there is no guarantee, and I'm not sure how the theatre and the industry can remedy itself at the moment. And so that's what I would wish, that it could all be remedied and we could all go back to doing the stuff that we love, really.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the theatre genie. Otherwise, I would very, very gladly grant that wish. There are theatre makers across the world scratching their heads, trying to work out exactly. And it's not just a problem of the audience. And every time I think I've solved the audience problem, I then remember that actors can't be closer than 2 meters to each other.
Exactly.
And if we only worked in professional football and we could test everyone twice a week, it would be
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you very much, Gemma. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. I've learned a lot. And thank you everyone who's attended this webinar, and thank you to the Arts Council England who've made these webinars possible through their emergency COVID response funding. Next week, I'll be talking to Tarek Merchant, who's a composer, actor, musician, and musical director, about the interplay between theatre, music, and what it is to be an actor musician. So look forward to not seeing, but being with some of you next week. And anyone who's interested in catching up with any of our other work, this weekend we're streaming a live production of my new play, It's Not All Zoom and Gloom. Go to our website, which is www.roustabouttheatre.co.uk. Thank you all very much, and goodbye, Gemma.
Thank you.
Bye.